What's going on, everybody? Dottz here, and today I'm bringing you a build that you have not seen from me in a long time here on YouTube, and that is my Stamina Nightblade PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online Deadlands patch. So with the new armory system that ZeniMax has put into the game, I have now officially been able to use both Stamina and Magicka on my Nightblade on one character by just swapping around with the armory. Whenever I've put out different builds for Magicka or Stamina Nightblade, it's always been based off what I've been in the mood and what I've made my character. But like I said, with the armory system, I can do both essentially, and that is super, super fun. And so I reevaluated the Stamblade build on my website. I overhauled it and updated it quite a bit just to optimize it more for the Deadlands patch, and this is the final result. The build is definitely very offensive, pumps out a lot of damage, but it definitely does not lack in the tankiness department. The footage you see here was before I updated the tankiness a little bit. I kind of massaged the build a little bit and was able to find some more resistance, and now I'm extremely happy with all the numbers, how it came out, and I'm really enjoying the build. But like I do always say, guys, this is just what I like, what I'm using, and what's working for me. If you want to run something else, sorry, I'm coughing. If you want to run something else on your Stamblade, obviously you can go right ahead and do so. This is just what I'm personally enjoying. And guys, if you do like these builds and do want to help support the channel, you can find a link to YouTube membership below this YouTube video. You could subscribe to the channel with that for only like $1 a month, and you can help support me and what I do here on YouTube and get some extra perks in the process. But without further ado now, guys, let's get into this video talking about what we're using on our Stamblade today. So our first set is going to be just a single piece of blood spawn. So this just gives us a line of stamina recovery. Now, if I was running this super optimally, this would be a piece of Magma Incarnate. Unfortunately, I don't have heavy Magma Incarnate shoulders, so I do need to get those at some point. But for now, I just use this for the line of stamina recovery. If you do have Magma Incarnate, use that here instead. Originally, I actually wasn't running a mythic on this build, but I decided to put one on kind of after weighing my options. And so I was left with one piece of gear, and I thought that the line of stamina recovery would just be nice to give me like a really nice, like nearly 2,000 stamina recovery. It feels an extremely comfortable number to be around for both CP and no CP. And so we do use the piece of blood spawn for that, because I did run another like recovery enchant. It felt like a little too much, so the blood spawn piece kind of covers me there. One of our 5-piece sets is going to be Stygian. This will be present on both bars. So this gives us a line of two lines of weapon damage, a line of pen, and when you leave sneak while in combat, your weapon damage is increased by 352 for 15 seconds. So this set gives us a ton of weapon damage, and the good thing is that it is just weapon damage on the character, which means that it will be affected by major brutality. And again, we are a Nightblade, we are using stealth, so we're able to take really easy advantage of the set, and plus 15 seconds for a buff is really long. So this could last for a while. You don't have to worry about your uptimes too much, and you're popping out of stealth, dealing a lot of damage. So Stygian is really good to help, like I said, augment that. Plus the 2 through 4 pieces are fantastic. And then speaking of dealing damage coming out of stealth, because surprise attack will set targets off balance coming out of stealth when hitting them from a flank, makes it really easy to run something like Stuns. So Stuns gives us, again, 2 lines of weapon damage and another line of offensive penetration, just those great 2 through 4 pieces. And then when you deal damage to an enemy who is off balance, your physical and spell penetration is increased by 5126 for 10 seconds. So Stamblade no longer has the I don't have, like in my build, I don't have major breach, and so running Stuns is allowing me to get essentially nearly major breach, which is nice, because between that and the pen that we do get from surprise attack, we actually do have a very respectable penetration amount on the build. So Stuns, again, it just enables a lot of damage. We already have Stygian to give us weapon damage when we come out of stealth, so you know, hitting an enemy and setting them off balance surprise attack is super easy. So Stuns is just such an obvious choice to me for some extra pen and some extra damage. So these two sets paired together, it gives you a ridiculous damage spike. So I really do enjoy Stoons for that reason. And now the mythic that I do have on the build is the new one, and it is the Marken Ring of Majesty. So this gives you 100 weapon damage and 1157 armor for every set that you're wearing that you wear at least 3 or more pieces of. And so this is 200 weapon damage and 2300 armor. I really, really like this mythic. I started using it on my mag DK for BGs when Ring of the Pale Order isn't as useful. And I also was like thinking about, like, you know, was just kind of messing with my Nightblade build as I was testing it, and I was like, I wonder where if I can get some extra tankiness from, but I don't want to lose damage. And that's where the Marken Ring comes in, man. Like 200 weapon damage and 2300 armor is a really, really just nice set of stats coming from a one-piece ring. And the great thing that I like about it is that it's not so excessive that you're like, oh my god, this ring is overpowered, but it's not low enough where you're like, it's not worth it. It just sits in my opinion, a really nice sweet spot where it's worth putting on a build. And honestly, I have really enjoyed the ring a lot. You know, like the 2300 armor is definitely noticeable, and I don't lose damage with the 200 weapon damage, because I originally had Balorg here and instead of the Marken Ring, but then I decided to swap off Balorg and put on Marken instead, and I have more weapon damage running around. My peak weapon damage really isn't all that different compared to when I use incap, so I'm basically just trading some extra penetration for some extra armor. And because I think the build has enough pen already, to me, the Marken Ring just kind of made sense, and I do really enjoy it a lot. If you do want to, though, you could also run Sithis Gaze. I know a lot of Nightblades run Sithis. I wanted to keep the damage super, super high. I like to play my Nightblade extremely aggressive, and so because of that, we went with the Marken Ring for that nice hybrid between offense and defense. And then on the back bar, we are using the Master's Perfected Bow. The 2-piece bow is going to give us 100 weapon damage, and then it increases our weapon damage by 330 against targets affected by poison injection. So just another boost to weapon damage on the build. You're going to be maintaining poison injection on your target anyway, so by doing that, you're getting an extra 330 weapon damage. So you're getting extra weapon damage from this, extra weapon damage from Stygian, extra pen from Stoons. You have a lot of stuff proccing, and you get a lot of bonus damage outside of the already great stats that the build already sports. Now, in terms of weights and traits, guys, we are using 2 pieces of heavy and 5 pieces of medium. I believe I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prismatic glyphs and 2 stam glyphs. I know it's a lot, but look at the health and magicka. Like, I don't like to run really less than 28k health for like my normal builds nowadays. Like, maybe if I'm running a ganking build deck, I'll go lower, but for me, like 28k has kind of been my floor, and so running this many prismatics like lets me get there. And then I have the 2 stamina glyphs. I believe I have 3 well fitted on, 1, 2, 3 well fitted, 3 imp pen, and a reinforced heavy chest. I run 3 robust, ignore the blue ring. I run 3 robust, 2 stamina recovery, and 1 weapon damage. I run a Nirnhoned Stoons Greatsword with escapist poisons. So this will immobilize your target and grant you unstoppable, rendering you immune to crowd control effects for 2.4 seconds. This poison will also break you free of ongoing control effects. This also inflicts hindrance on your target and grants major expedition, reducing your their movement speed by 40% and increasing your movement speed by 30%. Because I don't run a gap closer on the build, I find escapist poisons to be really helpful for me to stick to my targets. You know, just because I don't run vampire for this personally. So for me, I find like, and so I don't get into like some of the extra like stealth movement speed and whatnot. So for me, I find escapist poisons to be extremely helpful to be able to stick to my targets a little bit easier. And then on that Master's Perfected Bow on the back bar, we do run a weapon damage glyph. Now, moving on to our skills. Our first skill is going to be Camo Hunter. So Camo Hunter is going to reveal enemies in stealth around us, and they can't return to stealth for 4 seconds. But most importantly, we gain Major Savagery, which increases our weapon critical, and we also gain Minor Berserk, which increases our critical damage done. Minor Berserk gives us 5% damage done after we deal critical damage from an enemy's flank. So because Surprise Attack guarantees a crit, or because stealth guarantees a crit, we surprise attack from a flank anyway because we want to actually stun our opponents. So by doing that, we're also getting Minor Berserk in the process, on top of Stygian, on top of Stoons. Like, we're getting all these buffs, but Camo Hunter enables a lot of damage because number 1, it gives us Major Savagery, so our crit actually ends up at a respectable 29.4%, and plus I am a Khajiit, so for me, having that extra crit's really good because it means I'll be able to take advantage of my extra critical damage passive. But on top of that, we're gaining Minor Berserk for free for something we already are going to be trying to do anyway, which is going to be hitting from a flank. Also, on top of that, the Fighters Guild passives to increase your weapon damage is actually like really significant. Like, I know if they see 3%, you're like, oh, that can't possibly be that much. It is a good amount. I was trying ambush at one point, and like, let me tell you, the weapon damage is noticeable, and losing the crit is noticeable. Losing Minor Berserk is noticeable. So I think Camo Hunter is just an extremely good run for the front bar of the Stand Blade. Plus, again, it also helps us get those rally crits too, which is also super helpful. Run Surprise Attack. This is going to be our spammable. This is going to deal 8,800 physical damage, apply the Sundered status effect. It also, if you attack from a flank, which again we will always be trying to do, you're going to stun the enemy for 3 seconds and set them off balance, which will then also proc our stuns. So Surprise Attack is going to be the spammable of the build. Just an amazing skill. Hits hard, deals a lot of damage, stuns targets, so this can be our primary CC. It's just a very, very good skill overall. We also have Relentless Focus. So Relentless Focus will increase our weapon damage by 60 every time we light our heavy attack up to 5 times, which is really good. But the main reason we want this is for that bow, allowing you to fire the spectral arrow for half cost, dealing disease damage and healing you for 33% of the damage dealt if you are within melee range. Now, let me tell you, one of the great things that I do like about being a Khajiit is that you can get some really, really big crits off with this bow, man. And plus, when you have Stygian, when you have Stuns, when you have, you know, Major Brutality, when you have all that stuff like up, the tooltip on Relentless Focus is really, really nice. It deals a lot of damage, especially if you use it after an in-cap. So basically, in-cap is going to deal 14k disease damage and cause them to take 20% more damage from our attacks for 6 seconds. If the cast with 120 or more ultimate, you could also stun the enemy. And then we also get some passive regeneration, magic, and stamina from Reeve on that last bonus here whenever we deal damage with a light or heavy attack with against an enemy with a negative effect on them, which they always will. Now, again, the good thing is that if you bow after the in-cap, you will be increasing your bow by 20%. So your bow is going to deal a lot of extra damage. So that's kind of like the combo you're trying to do is you're trying to in-cap into bow. That's what you're trying to set up. Sometimes it can miss because Relentless Focus and Assassin's Scourge does have a kind of obnoxious travel time, but you know, when it does land, it hits super hard. So that is going to be the combo you're trying to go for. For my execute, I do use Killer's Blade. So you deal disease damage. And the more important part is that you deal 300% more disease damage to enemies below 25% health. So this is going to be the execute for the build. It also heals us for 6k if the enemy dies within 2 seconds of being struck. This portion scales off my max health. So the eternal debate for Stand Blade has always been Killer's Blade versus Executioner from the two-handed line. I really like Killer's Blade. I think the heal is super, super valuable. You also get Assassin's passives as well, Assassination passives. But it's completely preferential to you, whether or not you want to run Killer's Blade or Executioner. I personally have actually been enjoying Killer's Blade a lot nowadays, but again, if you'd like Executioner, you go ahead and run that. But I've been enjoying Killer's Blade a lot. Rally is going to be our burst heal, as well as a source of minor endurance and major brutality. So gives us 15% stamina recovery, 20% increased weapon damage, and a giant heal if we use Rally after a certain period of time. You know, the longer it's up, the bigger the heal. And then especially with that crit on the front bar, and again, the fact that I'm a Khajiit is going to give us bigger heals as well. It's just really good. It's a good burst heal. Because our weapon damage on the front bar is super high, we can get some really fat heals out of Rally. So really, really, really like the skill. It's good for that reason. Back bar, we use Poison Injection. So Poison Injection is going to be our only dot on the build. But the most important part is that it procs our Master Bow. It also does give us some extra damage to enemies below 50% health, so it will double the damage essentially when enemies are starting to get low, so it just kind of helps you kill off opponents that much faster. So very, very good skill. You could also use Venom Arrow if you want to, but personally I've been enjoying the damage from Poison Injection a little bit more. Now, the core skill to any Nightblade build, in my opinion, is going to be Shadow Image. So when you place the Shade down, it will shoot at enemies, dealing magic damage every 2 seconds. The Shade's attacks will inflict minor maim, but most importantly, when the Shade is summoned, you can activate this ability again to teleport back to the location. This is a very, very, very important stamina Nightblade skill to master, or just a Nightblade skill in general, because this is going to be your primary lifeline to escape fights. Because we do go so heavy into damage, we need to be able to get out and leave quick, and Shadow Image is good for that. You're going in, you're brawling it out, you see things are getting hairy, you shade out, and then you use stealth. You're going to use Shadowy Disguise to get away. So Shadowy Disguise is going to be your stealth. Cloak yourself for 3 seconds, and then the next direct damage attack with used within 3 seconds will always be a critical strike. So just helps us enable Camo Hunter on the front bar, gives us those big crits coming from stealth, especially if we hit from a flank. We're proccing all of our freaking sets at the same time. The build is really focused around that stealth, so obviously going to be a very important skill to have. We also do have Resolving Vigor. This is going to be our primary heal over time for the build, paired with Rally. Not much to say about it. I mean, Vigor's a staple heal on every stamina build for a reason. It is basically the best hot we have access to. Now I run Shuffle, so Shuffle is going to give you major evasion, decreasing damage from area attacks by 20% for 20 seconds, and then each piece of medium armor worn removes and grants immunity to stairs and mobilizations for 1 second. So because we're in 5 medium, we get 5 seconds of immunity. So I personally really like Shuffle still for my Stand Blade. I know some Stand Blades have foregone it and have run Siphoning Strikes instead, but I really like the damage mitigation for major evasion. It's super noticeable, especially if I'm fighting like Templars. It's really noticeable against Wardens. It's noticeable against Necromancers. I think evasion is still good to have, and plus the good thing is that because I get major evasion, I don't have to worry about getting unassailable from my CP, because major evasion pretty much covers me there, and plus my sustain in the build feels totally fine. I mean, what you could potentially do if you don't want to run it and you want to run siphoning attacks instead is change the one piece of Blood Spawn to either a piece of Scoria or a piece of Balorg, and you could run siphoning attacks here for more stamina gen and healing. But personally, I've always liked Shuffle. Every time I've tried to get rid of it, I ended up not liking it. I just really like having snare and root immunities on my Stand Blade, so do like Shuffle for that reason. Also run Temporal Guard in the back bar for the minor protection, giving us 5% damage mitigation. You know, my Stand Blade build is not exactly the world's tankiest build. The back bar is still pretty solid, because we got the defending bow, and we got the mark and ring. So, you know, with our major buff up, major resolve, we still have, you know, about 25k resistances, but it's not like the crazy highest. And so Temporal Guard just kind of helps a little bit, giving us a little bit of extra protection on that back bar, especially because for me, with my ult, I mainly go into in-cap anyway. What you could potentially do if you don't like Temporal Guard, you have a couple other options. You could run Soul Tether. You could also run the healing morph of Soul Tether. If you are so inclined, you could also run what's it called? You can run Toxic Barrage. That's another good option as well if you're looking for a far ranged attack. If you kind of want something to also get people to send you hate whispers, that's also a good ultimate to use. But I've been enjoying Temporal Guard. I've been liking it a lot. But obviously this back bar ult is pretty customizable, kind of based off of what you want to use. Now, in terms of our stats, we are at 20k maximum magicka, 28.8k max health on the back bar, with 28k max health on the front bar, with about 31k maximum stam. We got about 1979 stamina recovery with 792 magicka recovery. We have 4,477 unbuffed weapon damage. Unbuffed penetration is about 6,500, which is just going to go up between Stoons and between the Sundered status effect. We have 15.5k resistances on the front bar with 18.8k on the back bar, with 2350 critical resistance. We also use the Serpent Mundus for that stamina recovery, and we use the Bewitched Sugar Skulls Tri-Stat buff food. All points into stamina. And now in terms of your race, I am a Khajiit primarily because, like I explained at the beginning of the video, this guy is both my Mag Blade and my Stand Blade, so I needed kind of a race that would let me hybridize between the two. And actually, I really like the Mag Blade build with Khajiit now. It feels really good. But so I went with Khajiit for that reason. You don't have to be a Khajiit if you do not want to. You could obviously go with Wood Elf. Wood Elf's a very good option as well. If you went with Wood Elf, you could definitely tone down the recovery from your jewelry. You could definitely run at least one more weapon damage glyph if you do run a Wood Elf. Same thing if you run an Imperial. You could that would be the other race I recommend. You could also again take off a recovery glyph, run another weapon damage glyph, because that cost reduction is going to be super valuable. Also, with the amount of stats that Imperial is going to give you, you could also adjust your enchants if you want to, maybe remove some prismatic glyphs and go more into stam if you feel so inclined, or actually remove some robust, run infused. But you're gonna need to kind of like, if you don't run Khajiit, because I obviously built the build around being a Khajiit, you're gonna need to tune things a little bit for the Wood Elf or the Imperial, but Bosmer and Imperial are also fantastic races. My personal recommendation, if you don't want to be a Khajiit, is Imperial. I always loved Imperial for Stamblade. So I'd say run one of those three, and you'll probably find the most success with that. Now, in terms of champion points, so as you can tell, my build is quite offensive. I have, Stygian, I have Stoons, I have the Markin Ring, I have the Master Bow. I don't have a shitload of defense. And so because of that, I went a little heavy defensively through my CP. So I ran Duelist Rebuff for 10% damage reduction on single target attacks, Ironclad for 10% on direct damage, and then Resilience for 10% damage reduction on critical attacks. I actually find that buffing my damage with Deadly Aim is enough. Pretend you didn't just see me swap. I accidentally had the wrong CP. Buffing my damage with Deadly Aim is actually enough, and by the way, because I had the wrong CP and the tooltip on poison injection was a little bit lower than it should have been, but regardless, we do run Deadly Aim as our single target damage increases. It's going to increase the attack, the damage of every single attack in our build. But again, if you do not want to run 3 defensive CP, I would drop Resilience and put it in Master at Arms for direct damage increase, because you're going to want to run Deadly Aim as your main CP. I did have that wrong. I do apologize. For red CP, I run Boundless Vitality, 1400 maximum health, Rejuvenation for 90 recoveries across the board. We do Relentlessness for major protection after we are CC'd. So this is really important because the time that we're going to be threatened the most is after we're crowd controlled, and so Relentlessness is really, really good to give us that major protection after we are CC'd, to give us that tankiness. And then I also do run Celerity for increased movement speed. I find this to be extremely valuable to just be able to move around a lot easier, especially because I don't run a gap closer. So I find that to be just a lot easier to move about. Now, in terms of a rotation for the Stamblade, guys, basically what you're going to be trying to do is maintain Shuffle at all times, and then maintain Shadow Image at all times, especially Shadow Image. You don't have Shadow Image, you're throwing. It's super important. You also want to maintain Poison Injection on your enemies to maintain that Master Bow buff. Now, basically what you're trying to do, also maintain Rally on yourself, and then maintain Relentless Focus. What you're trying to do is, with all those things up, you go Stealth. You'll walk up behind someone, and then you surprise attack them. And then you just light attack, surprise attack, until you get the bow. Then, assuming you have in-cap, you in-cap, fire off the bow. When they get low, you use Killer's Blade. And then if you don't have the in-cap, just rinse and repeat that without in-cap. But, Stamblade, it's pretty straightforward in terms of what you're trying to do. Also Potion. I just realized I did not talk about the Potion. Potion, I'm just running Tri-Stats. Just basic tri-stat pots that'll give you your resources across the board. I find it to be very useful, especially because I have crit on the front bar. I don't feel like I need crit pots. The toughest thing that I will say with Stamblade, being a new Stamblade, is surviving, okay? I remember back when I first started playing Stamina Nightblade, the class, I found it really tough back in the day when I first started it. The offense, I feel like, is super straightforward as long as you know how to light attack. Like, if you know how to weave, the offense is really straightforward. The tough part is the defense, is the defensive aspect of it. And mastering the defensive prowess of the Stamina Nightblade is, in my opinion, based around mastering Shadow Image and Cloak. If you can master these two skills give you a disgusting amount of effective mitigation, because if no one is able to hit you or no one is able to find you, they can't deal damage to you. And so that is where these two skills really come in handy. Placing your Shadow Image in smart locations, knowing when it's time to bow out of a fight, learning how to bob in and out of combat, and when it's good to go in, when you need to stay out, when should I cloak here, like, learning that through experience and practice is going to be really important. So I will always, the tip I have for Shade for you is just always be cognizant of where you put it. Try to put it in locations so that when you port to it, you are safe. So again, let's say I'm fighting out in the world, right? In this tree I'm fighting, right? You can place the Shade behind a tree. You go out, you fight, you do your thing. Oh shit, I'm gonna take a lot of damage. Now you have LOS, then you could dodge roll for Major Expedition and stealth. And now you're away, But if you just, place your Shade here in the open, and you're fighting Pesky Magsork, and you go, oh shit, I'm taking a lot of damage, and you port, he can still hit you. There's no difference between being over there and being over here, you know? So you need to put it in a really smart location to just allow yourself to be able to hide should shit hit the fan. But guys, on that note, that's going to be it for me with my updated Phantom build. It's been a long time since this build has graced YouTube, but, you know, I'm really happy with the new version of it. Also, again, huge thanks to ZeniMax for putting the armory in the game. It's so nice to not be able to, or to not have to choose between Stamblade and Magblade and be able to play both. I'm really happy about that, so definitely big ups to them for that. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you did enjoy this updated Stamina Nightblade PvP build. If you did like it, please leave a like on the video. Any questions about it, please leave a comment below. And for more ESO and other MMORPG content, feel free to hit that sub button as well as hit the bell to keep those notifications on. So thank you all so much for stopping by, guys. I really do appreciate it. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next video.